Okay, testing, testing. Alright, I got an idea for a video game story and quests a little bit. I just worked on it for the last 15, 25 minutes. You know, but I had an idea for making a video game that was interesting, but using woke tropes a little bit. Um, at least for the base game. Secretly, everything would be getting worse because of the group you're playing as, and that would be the last boss reveal for the base game. The DLC would be turning away from it to fix things. The last level or battlefield of the base game would be called The Rights of Wingicus, and that'd be the main villain, Wingicus. And rights in this case is Rites, so he's summoning something or a god or something like that. Summoning the strong god or the god of strength or something, what he'll say or something like that. The DLC would be named Mending Broken Wings, and the second DLC would be The Mendicant of Wingicus. First DLC would be going back to old places and resolving the issues your group caused. Second DLC would be stopping the inheritor of Wingicus's will. Probably would have some sort of Battlefront 2 AI and reinforcement score for combatants thing, like NPCs, sort of like generic units and stuff like that. That'd be the first DLC. The second DLC would add followers that are AI controlled but full heroes out of the people you support to resolve the issues for the battles from the first DLC. Probably reveal the name of the Mendicant of Wingicus as Yerick Fuegos. Anyways, it's a stupid play on Right Wing and Nick Fuentes. Basically, the lesson would be if you don't want Nick Fuentes, don't be woke. We'll probably have a buff bald man send you on a quest for Sandshrew paste as well. Someone pointed out Nick Fuentes is woke in the opposite direction. And it's like, yeah, that's true. I don't want Nick Fuentes. I'm not saying he's a great guy. Wingicus would be in the base game who reveals everything that you're screwing up as his plan so that he can set it to rights and play the hero. And that he's the one that sent you on your journey. I'd probably make Yerick Fuegos say something about I vowed to the guardian of the veil I'd be elbows up or elbows deep until he's awoken or something like that. Could call the name of the game Wings of Rebellion or something like that, or WOR or War. I'll make a guy spouting random gibberish nonsense called Pig Hazer. Play on Laser Pig. I'll add a gnome named Tiny Fest with blue hair who screams about Wingicus stealing his wife. And maybe add a side quest for him to marry Yerick Fuegos in the base game. And that would be a little... Yerick Fuegos would end up being the villain of the second DLC, of course. So, gay marriage. But that's a play on Destiny and Nick Fuentes kind of apparently supposedly sucking each other's dicks. See, you can make woke interesting a little bit if you play around with it a little bit. I would probably add cat people to my game, maybe. And I'll have a quest named Springtime with Kittler, who talks about his bro Seth with the garbles and syphilis, and how he wants an earnest, romantic, catsy girl from the enriched hinterland. And if you don't know what those are, Kittler would be Hitler. Bro Seth with the garbles, or bro with syphilis and garbles, will be Joseph Goebbels, and it's spelled Goebbels. I don't know how the R sound gets in there, but that's what I put it for. And now he wants an earnest romantic, which is a play on Ernst Röhm, and Katzy is Nazi. And a rich hinterland is Heinrich Himmler. And he can tell she's the one, the Katzy girl, by her purred Reiki, which is a play on Third Reich. That's all I've got in terms of thoughts on this. But, Sandshrew Pace to play on Andrew Tate and so on, I could, I don't know if I can really think of anything beyond this, but, just throwing ideas out there for plays on words and so on, And basically, the point of it will be sort of narrative structure-wise. If you want a Nick Fuentes in charge, keep doing woke stuff. Eventually, people will get sick and tired of it and so on. I know someone might object to the narrative of like Wingicus setting you on your path to destroy the world so he can fix it and play the hero. But it's a video game idea, so it's not really like too serious. And I'm not being totally accurate, but I'm kind of the narrative structure would be you're playing as the unique, special, fated by destiny, not the YouTuber, but the concept of fate, to save the world and so on, but you're just making it worse, and someone's using you to make themselves look good by comparison because you really are that awful. And then you sort of pull back from that and look to fix and resolve your issues with common sense. And then one of the underlings of the guy who was using you to make himself look good by comparison seeks to do the same thing, and then you beat him with the goodwill you've accrued by fixing your mistakes, and so on, while he's got the legacy of the guy through falsity and so on. But you're, like, actually trying to save the world and so on. To be honest, this sort of mirrors my own experience personally, so it's not necessarily entirely incorrect. But basically, I went woke back in the day, like 2008 to 2011, until the Occupy movement. And then I turned liberal, and then I turned right-wing eventually, and so on, because I basically looked at each one's... I looked at the left directly, and I was like, wow, we're really awful people who just leave dysfunction. And then I looked at the liberals, and eventually was like, okay, they don't have a spine against the left for actually dealing with the left. They just want to talk in a circle over and over again and look smart to themselves on the internet. They don't want to fix the problems. And then the right is like the only one that seems to be like decently intelligent while also forceful and has the willpower to actually do the things to solve the problems in my mind. And of course, if Yorick Fuego says I vowed, that's a play on I vowed, to awaken the Guardian of the Veil, Veilguard, Dragon Age Veilguard, and I'm elbows deep until I awoken until the strong god has awoken. Is a play on woke, elbows up, and there's a concept called the return of the strong gods, which is that Christ is the weak god or the meek god, and without him in charge, pagan, sort of barbaric, savage impulses in the human spirit that are like pantheon gods or the primordial chaos gods of Warhammer 40k in a sense will return in force and so on. So this is like my narrative structure and my belief in the metaphysics of reality and so on. So it's not just like a idle play on words entirely. It does speak to me on a deeper level personally, but at the same time I felt like I could have a little fun playing around with it and so on. And the narrative structure of fixing the problems you caused when you thought you were being the hero stupidly, and facing off against a Nick Fuentes type is, I would basically, I would sort of purposefully make the base game woke in terms of like Dragon Age Veilguard or Avowed or something like that, in terms of like the reasoning for different options and have different options and so on, with different flavors of awful. And then I would force a certain conservative response set up for options in the DLC, and then I'd open it up again so that there's a mix of them in the second DLC. So combine the first and the second's woke and right of center options so that you can pick the ones you want and so on. And since that would be the penultimate one, the ending type you get basically comes from the choices you finally make when you have experience in woke and right of center option sets and so on. And it would be propaganda in a sense, but at the same time it's like it would almost be art, I would think, in a way, if I pulled it off. And like, by the way, just because I know these things and I'm putting like Nazi names into things, it's not like I have any loyalty to them or something like that. I mean, it's kind of silly. It's just silliness based on my knowledge of historical figures and so on. But the moral quandaries of the individual choices would resonate near the end, especially. So, base game and the first DLC would be relatively railroaded to some extent, with slightly different alterations, and where you begin with the second in the DLC for the second DLC, where you begin in terms of your story would be more open-ended in the beginning based on your choices, and where you end will be more open-ended on the second DLC for your choices as well. And yeah. So it's kind of like a play on BioShock Infinite in a sense. but it would be right wing, and it would be a little more tongue in cheek, and so on. And it would confuse a lot of people, I would think, because it would be like, it's woke, no, it's right wing, no, it's woke, no, it's right wing, no, it's Nazi, it's woke, it's Nazi, it's woke, it's Nazi. And that would actually make me really happy if people couldn't make up their mind on what it is. So they're like, it's got all these hints to Nazism and so on, but it's woke. The base game is woke. Yeah. The point is to make an interesting piece of art, basically. One of the things that I've something provocative that has a little bit of artistic whimsy and speaks to my understanding of the journey I've had and so on. I don't know if it'd resonate with other people, but this is like what I would make the game for and so on. So it'd be speaking my experience, and I don't know if other people will have that experience themselves, but yeah. And I'd probably do something where there's multiple endings based on where you started and where you ended with your choices, based on the previous two games that are railroaded somewhat, and then open-ended on the second DLC or third part of it. But I would not make one set of choices heaven on earth and the other one hell on earth entirely. I'd have like a more of a more for the third one. I'd have more of a these are the kind of living situations you can expect from them, and whichever one you're more loyal to is what you can decide, and there'd be a little nod to the real world effects of say multiculturalism leading to more crime and social disharmony and so on, but at least there would be less maybe like there's an empire or something like that, and it would like it previously oppressed people and now it doesn't, or something like that, you know what I mean? But there'd be a lot more crime and civil wars and so on. Or like one where it collapses into feudalism and there's more conflict between rival states that are city states or something like that out of the former empire. But there's more social cohesion, or something like that, and so on. So it would be like there would be a negative and a positive side to every ending you get based on your choices in the third part or second DLC, basically. And you'd have a whichever choice you pick is based on your philosophy of life and so on. Because life, in my experience, is a mixed experience regardless of what choices you make. For the video game, I would exclude this philosophy basically, but basically in real life, sorry, for the third part or second DLC, I would exclude this aspect for the ending parts, and make it a choose what you feel resonates with you kind of thing more so, which is my philosophy is that you can pick and you can trade off things in such a way that it is generally better or worse for most people. And there's a right and wrong answer to all these things. But for the game, I would nullify that for the third part. Because because I don't want to make propaganda in the entire sense, but I want to like nudge someone on the possibility that woke is causing problems, and there needs to be answers to woke and so on some level, and then open it up and let them decide for themselves if it's worth it or not. The problems that woke causes, whether they're worth it or not in their eyes. In a sort of Thomas Sowell, there are no such things as solutions in politics, only trade-offs kind of sense, basically. So I would nudge towards the right in my first DLC or second part, narratively, but I would open it up to anyone's choice for the third part and so on, and just give them what they want to hear, basically, on some level, but also a nudge into sort of like think of the costs of your way, getting your way, and so on, kind of thing. Yeah. And maybe I might have something like, if you crack down on, maybe if you crack down on Tiny Fast, or you do something nasty to him, then it turns out his playwright interests would have caused a cultural golden age for that civilization or something like that, in the arts and culture, deeper human experience, and exploring the human condition in one way. And also, if you pick the right-wing version, if you pick the woke one, then Tiny Fast gets his playwright credentials, and he does the whole exploration of the deeper human experience. And if you pick the right-wing version, I'd have different versions than these two as well, but like this is my left and right divide thing so far at the moment. Just brainstorming as I speak, basically, with this. Then monasteries would emerge, and there would be a minimal exploration of the human condition that is quite dull and boring and not vibrant, but it would connect the warring feudal states more for the future as well, so that there'd be a trade-off with these things. So you'd have the LGBT sort of Hollywood cultural hegemony, and then you'd have the monastic sort of Christian-ish cultural hegemony of that one. And you could pick which of those two, and I'd come up with like 2 more options or 3 more options that you can pick for which version of these things you actually prefer the most in the third part or second DLC or something like that. So that's how I played it out.